Are we live? Are we live? Nope, we're not live. Go live. Come on, baby. There we are. Countdown. 3, 2, 1. All right. All right. This is September 18th, 2022. Tomorrow, anniversary of Lisa and I's first date in 1986 on a Friday night football game.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it going on a day.
Well, we met at a football game. We didn't stay at a football game.
At that point, I don't think they were actually supposed to be together, but were you?
We can't. That's under a confidentiality clause. Yeah, we snuck around for 3 months, and then Mom and Dad got a hold of us, and that's when I was introduced to the Salem First Assembly of God. And everybody's mouth went, "What is he doing here? What's that little heathen here? And why is he near the preacher's daughter?" Scandal. I mean, scandal. Okay. I had a, I worked hard to do some of the stuff I did, but I also got a lot of credit for stuff I never did. Never bought and sold dope my whole life, but I was known as some kind of a dealer. I meant like it, but acted like it, but I didn't do it. Mrs. Humphreys was convinced that me and Moss were possessed, that we'd go around behind that roll around chalkboard in Housing and Foods and drop 666 on there and Grim Reaper and verses from Black Sabbath and AC/DC and all kinds of just like a lot of people don't hold our feet over the fire for the idiot things we did as teenagers or at some earlier point in our lives. We did stupid stuff. Find me somebody that didn't. I mean, there's people out there that have testimonies. If I was brought up in church, I was saved at 5 years old and never did anything bad. But that ain't me, baby. That ain't me. My life would have been better off if I'd have. Yeah, well, you were just when the mafia moved in. That's why they had. That's why they had to shut down the Terrapin Downs turtle race at the Old Timers days. The mob got involved. All right. Human sinfulness began. And it began before 1986. So it says, at the creation of humanity, God declared his creation to be very good. He united the first man and woman in marriage relationship and gave the opportunity for a full, beautiful, eternal life. If only they would live in obedience to him, and there was only one rule, not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But God had given humanity freedom to choose. Adam and Eve made a wrong choice, and that choice has affected human beings ever since. Not only has it affected human beings, but it has affected the earth, animals, everything. I mean, were the animals ever going to die if the people didn't die?
Actually, people were free to live forever.
What about the animals? The animals have a spirit too, because it says at death we don't know for sure if they go down, if they go up. That's scriptural. So people don't they kind of balk at stuff like that, and they say, I don't know about that. And to be honest, it's not a get you saved or sent you to hell type of thing one way or another, but it's still very interesting. And all of the Bible, all of creation groans, waiting on us for our manifest to be revealed. So the whole earth was put into frustration because of Adam and Eve's sin. The earth is waiting patiently for the sons of God to be revealed, for all of this to finally wrap up. And then there will be no more. Anybody ever wonder what it was like before the sin? How beautiful it must have been. I walk across the farm sometimes when things are, growing things and things are coming in. It's like I was out there one day and, there was something that was ripe and I went by and ate it. And I walked by a blackberry bush and there were blackberries and I ate them. And I thought, wow, how nice. Blackberries never planted, didn't have to do anything. I just walked by, ate. How great would it have been? Just at your disposal. Japanese man that created he created the conditions because there was 10% more oxygen. So the oxygen, we're at 20% oxygen, they were at 30-some percent oxygen, which meant they could literally run for hours and never be winded. And of course now there was water above the earth and water below the earth, so there was probably a water vapor layer between us and the sun, which made kind of like a hyperbaric chamber, which of course made the oxygen bump up. Anyway, this guy grew in a greenhouse, all maybe so many thousands of tomatoes, and all the cherry tomatoes were the size of baseballs. So imagine this was like food everywhere. Okay, it would have been, the description. I don't think the description could be formed in our minds of what it would be like. But talking to snakes are bad things. Lonnie, you want to read the scripture?
Genesis 3:1. The serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild animals the Lord had made. One day he asked the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat the fruit of any of the trees in the garden?" "Of course we may not eat fruit from the trees in the garden," the woman replied. I said that wrong. "Of course we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden," the woman replied. "It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we are not allowed to eat. God said, you must not eat it or even touch it. If you do, you will die." "You won't die," the servant replied to the woman. "God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil." The woman was convinced. She saw the tree was beautiful and the fruit looked delicious, and she wanted the wisdom it would give her. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. Then the Lord said, God to the servant, "Because you have done, you are cursed more than all the animals, domestic and wild. You will crawl on your belly, grappling in the dust as long as you live. And you will cause hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel." Then the Lord said, "Look, the human beings have become like us, knowing both good and evil. What if they reach out, take the fruit from the tree of life, and eat it? Then they will live forever." So the Lord banished them from the garden, and then he sent Adam out to cultivate the ground from which he had been made. Chapter 4, verse 1. Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help, I have produced a man." Later she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, with Cain cultivated the ground, while Cain cultivated. One day, Cain suggested to his brother, "Let us go out into the fields." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Afterward, the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother?" "Where is Abel?" "I don't know," Cain responded. "And am I my brother's guardian?" But the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground."
Actually, in Hebrew, it's the word bloods, because not only did he kill Abel, he killed every son, every grandson, every great grandson, and down the lines that came from that righteous line. How many think that it was an apple that they ate?
It's just what we assume it was.
Yeah, that's what. But also, somebody who thought apples were really good was because you're gonna pick what's tempting to you, you know.
Well,
They look really pretty hanging on the tree.
Well, they do look pretty hanging on. So do peaches, and peaches are far sweeter. But, I think the fact of the tasteful clothes that they had on up in front of them is proof of what they ate. Because if you suddenly realize you're naked, you're going to grab what you're closest to. And it wasn't 4 hours later that the glory of God wore off. It was instantaneously that it wore off. And obviously Eve had had her children before because she was excited about having a man. Okay. And also that her pain in childbirth would be greatly increased, which means it had happened before. So, the Jews will tell you that, they search the scriptures like you would not believe. They live it. That is what they eat, sleep, and breathe. And when they found out about the Exodus letter sequencing and they started finding the Bible code, they found out so many different names of children that Adam and Eve have, and so many different names of trees that was in the Garden of Eden. And of course, now you talk mainstream Christianity, and like, just tell me I'm saved. That's all I need to know. Like, well, you do need to know more. You need to go deeper because God hid things for us to find.
So did Adam have a belly button?
Did Adam? I don't know. But there was a church that split over that because there was a painting of Adam and Eve on the wall, and they had lowered the fig leaf long enough that there was a belly button on Adam, and they split. There's been churches split on pews versus chairs versus carpet color, choir robes. Yeah, just steeple on the church nod. I think the steeple's there just to make a Jehovah's Witness flinch. Because you know what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, don't you? All of you any JW friends I have. They believe that is the symbol of Baal. That is a male phallic symbol. In other words, they believe we got a giant wiener on our church. That is exactly what they believe. They believe that we are servants of Baal. Baal. The child sacrifice God. Okay. And I always just thought, I tried to look into the tradition of it. I can't find the tradition of it. I mean, it's just, they connected with an obelisk, which is Egyptian, which was all that stuff. So you can nitpick and choose things. Listen, if people want to quit coming to this church, they'll find a reason. That reason might be me. That reason might be you. It might be the pastor. If they come in looking for offense, they're going to find offense through somebody. Somebody smarted off to them. Somebody was dressed different than they thought. Somebody had hair shorter than they thought. Somebody had clothes longer than they thought. Somebody wore something that sucked up their body just a little tighter than they liked. They're going to find a reason. If they really don't want to come to church, they're going to find a reason not to come to church. They're going to find an offense. Okay, it's our job to try not to give it to them, but they're going to find a reason if they truly are looking for a reason. I know people that were, as teenagers, played in bands. They themselves, I think, whether they actually believed what they were playing or not, I don't know. But they would go to local churches, and one of them always like, well, the preachers they flat out ripped us off, said they were going to pay us and never paid us. So in their thought, all preachers were evil because a few ripped them off. Was it the preacher? Was it the band members? I don't know. Whoever done it bears the responsibility for it. But if that person really wanted to find good preachers, they'd find good preachers. What they have, they've accepted an offense they believe because somebody of a position did wrong, that gives them the excuse that they ain't got it. They ain't got it. Tony did wrong, so Tony's a Sunday school teacher, so Tony did wrong, and I ain't got to listen to anything he says. There's no good Sunday school teachers, and everybody's a hypocrite. In Greek, the word offense is the word scandalon. It's the picture. Anybody ever seen a bird get caught in a trap? I mean, a bait stick trap, not a basket trap. A bait stick trap, well, it could be a basket or it could be a trigger switch. But basically, if you want to catch a bird, you had a stick up here and you had a stick coming out of it, and there was a rope, a lasso around that perch, and there was bait on that stick. And when that bird landed on that, the stick fell away. The weight triggered a weight to pull that noose tight around that bird's legs, and it was caught in a snare. That's when King David talks about the snare of the fowler. You shall be from the snare of the fowler. In other words, you shall deliver me from offenses. King David had a lot to be offended about, but he forgave him. You know, I like what Perry Stone said recently. He said because he's been hit by a lot of people, and is he perfect? Nope. Has he done stuff wrong? I'm sure he has. You know, but he's a man with a lot of knowledge. He spent his entire life studying and researching the Bible. Okay, so he said, you know, that, and he kind of mocks people that sometimes will say they have angelic experiences, but he said an angel did come to him one time. And he said, I crawled under a pew, more or less. He said, but I heard him say 30 times, vengeance is mine, said the Lord. Vengeance is mine. Vengeance is mine. So God's going to repay. But it may not be what you think. It's not that your enemy's going to fall over dead. It's not that they're going to lose their job. It's not that they're going to be illness or their wife leave them or their husband. When God blesses the person that they hate, that boils their pillows more than anything else in the world. They've done everything to keep you down. They lied about you. They stole from you. They gave false witness to ruin your business. You know, I've dealt with that through Fulton County Gossip and Town and Country. I hate Fulton County Gossip with a passion. And if there's anybody who names the name of Christ and is on it, I'm telling you right now, you're a hypocrite. You are a full-blown hypocrite. Because there's nothing good that comes out from that. And you read your Bible, where there's strife and contention, there's devil in every evil work. Okay, but people get on there and lie. I've seen people lie. There's people, you know, fake action, fake sickness. You know, it's humanity in itself can be very disheartening when you just get right down to it. And you know, I've seen people come in and making videos looking for something, just looking for something, cause contention and stuff like that. It's like,
I put a block and I deleted it and it pops back up.
well, just keep rocking it.
I don't understand how that.
Well,
happens.
I don't know. People keep sending me different, you know, I'm like, nope, decline. Listen, I mean, you don't have to participate, but, you know, that restaurant that shorted you that time and somebody bust them, you know, tell me you don't feel that little bit of thrill when they get their tail in the crack because they hurt you or lied to you or stole from you. Okay? Love doesn't rejoice in evil. There's a whole long list of things that love does, and it does not rejoice when somebody gets, you know, there's somebody that hurt my family that's going through basically what they did to my family. And, you know, and I was very clear. It's like, you know, we're not going to rejoice over this. You know, we're not going to rejoice over what's happened to them. Maybe that's their just desserts. I don't know, but we're not going to rejoice over it because that's very wrong.
God said, vengeance is mine, said the Lord, I will repay.
That's right.
We don't have to get aggravated and bug them.
And sometimes it's long in the making. But, you know, what he told King David, I have prepared a table before the presence of your enemies. In other words, I'm going to bless you with so much stuff, and they're going to stand back on the outside and watch. But when people come to you with people that are saying things like, I said, listen, I don't want to know who does all the bad stuff in this county, who lets this stuff in the county, what's going on behind closed doors and secret things. I don't want to know and don't need to know. If somebody's doing bad, they're going to come to their own bad end. It's not up to me. God sees everything that goes on. I don't need to know.
The seed you sow will produce 30, 60, and 100 fold.
So, be fruitful. All right. God cursed the snake to be on its belly forever.
Nora hates snakes.
Well, you know, I mean, and this is kind of, he's talking to the snake, but yet he's talking to Satan. So, you know, you kind of wonder, like, okay, Satan forever has to bow before Jesus. Forever has to. So when it comes to Satan or Christ, Satan literally will be groveling in the dirt forever. He wants to exalt himself. He wants to do all these things. He wants to be high up. That's why there's a certain gold building that is, you know, that whole area up there where they call that the temple courtyard, that's not the temple, was down on the Offal. There's all kinds of biblical evidence. Even the Jews are so blind to a lot of stuff. They think that the waiting wall, the retaining wall for Herod's for the second temple, it wasn't. that was the same exact size of all the Roman forts that was ever made, 35 miles, square, and Fort Antonio. But there was a rock up there underneath that big gold thing that is a rock that probably somebody stood on when Pilate pronounced judgment. So, yeah, Satan prefers high things. Why do you think that he compares sheep and goats? Sheep, they have no interest in, they'll climb on some, but goats are always climbing. You ever had a pet goat? You ever come out and look on your car? It's on your hood, it's on the top of your car. You leave the door open, it's up in the seat. There's a vast difference between sheep and goats. The only similarities they have is they got 4 legs, eat and poop. They seem more friendly, but then we see that in church too. People who will run up and shake your hand are the same one that'll stab you as soon as you turn. So, okay, when Cain killed Abel, what do you think happened? It was a rock. But they had, Tubal Cain hadn't messed with the metals yet. The Jews in Jewish history say it was a plowshare. So let's replay this whole thing. They come to bring their offerings. They know because of what God did with Adam and Eve that there's a blood sacrifice required. The Bible's very clear, without shedding the blood, there is no remission of sins. Abel knew this, and he brought the best of his flock. Cain knew this, and he didn't trade a bunch of groceries to get his sheep. He brought his best efforts. Okay? So, and how he got his best efforts was the same tool that he used to destroy his brother. In other words,
he tilled the ground, so whatever he.
Yeah, it was a plowshare. The Jews in Jewish history tell you it was a plowshare, and they also say that the 2 animals that God skinned to clothe Adam and Eve was lambs, which is also significant because we're clothed by a lamb, are we not?
Cool.
See, there's someone who remembers the story of the guy that was found in the Alps about 20 years ago. They said he was about 5,000 years old. He had 3 little crosses on his ankle. It was, they thought they'd found a skier that had been buried, but then when they dug him out, he was like 5,000 years old. They can't trace anything back more than 10,000 years old. I mean, they'll say this is 10 million and 10,000 because they have their different, in their mind, their eras, but they can't trace anything back. The whole thing of what we were taught as complete fact as growing up is changing. The earth is speeding up. Time is slowing down. Outside of gravity, there is no time. They proved that. The universe they thought was endless, they found the end to it. It's not. It's maybe expanding as winding as a clock, but it's not expanding beyond. So there's a limit to the macro of it. There's a limit to the micro of it because you go 10 to the 35th power and you lose locality, so you can't go any smaller. So we are living in an ultra sophisticated digital simulation, which the first people listen, because and I got a little nauseous, but the first people, the physicists will tell you this table's not solid. It appears to be solid. The chair you're sitting in, it appears to be solid, but it's not. But the first people that discovered this killed themselves. Is how serious it was. They killed themselves. All the things that they've used for years as fact that they put their whole world on is not true. You could take 2 babies born at birth, send one off to Alpha Centauri in a spaceship at the speed of sound or half the speed of sound, and when he comes back, he'll be 4 to 8 years younger than his brother. Outside of gravity, there is no time. Time is, as they say, relative. Nachmanides is a 5 centuries ago, a Jewish guy. He studied the book of Genesis, and he said there's 10 dimensions. He said 4 of we know, 6 are inferred. It took them building that RAM over in the CERN over in England for them to discover what a 15th century Jew found out. That and he just got that from reading the book of Genesis. So there is a depth. If you're willing to go deeper, there is a depth. But a lot of people They just like, I'm saved. Just tell me I'm saved, you know, and then we'll go on. But that man with the 3 crosses, they say that was probably one of Cain's descendants. That plus, what we would call a cross, was the letter Tav. And they believe that since God marked Cain with that letter, they believe they would have Cain's protection if they marked themselves with that. So it's all extraordinarily interesting, you know. So the Tav in Paleo Hebrew is this right here. We believe Jesus was, you know, he didn't carry an entire cross to Mount Golgotha. He carried a cross beam, a pole. More than likely, since this was something they did a lot, they probably had an olive tree right there. They probably had an olive tree right there that they would, that they had branches cut to where you could just lift that crossbeam up, put them down their branches, and then you could nail the legs to the sides of the tree. Because now we've always thought that it was feet stacked and went through there. But now they found crucified people with nails through the heels, because remember, not a bone was broken on Christ's body at all. So they've nailed it to either side of the tree. And they've actually found the human heel now with nails in it, and they found acacia wood still attached to it. The nail had bent, and they had to just cut the leg off and pry it out. So many interesting things, so many parallels. Acacia wood was what the ark was made out of. I mean, the Ark of the Covenant of God was made out of. So Jesus was crucified on olive tree and acacia wood. It's all. I mean, I know this probably is like, I don't care. Just tell us about the apple. Let's go on, you know. But still, there's just such. If you ever want to go deeper, there's just so much more in there. Anyway, questions, comments, cheers. Yawns.
I'm still puzzled with what you mentioned last week about Jonah dying in the belly of the whale.
Well, it says no this generation will be giving nothing but the sign of Jonah. Did Christ die in the cave, in the tomb? Remember, Jonah said, "I cried out from the gates of hell." He didn't say, "I cried out from the fish's belly." He died and was going down when he was begging for forgiveness. Now, it makes good story to tell little kids that God kept him alive in the fish's belly. But it makes biblical sense to say that God resurrected him after 3 days, just like Christ was resurrected and brought out of that mouth of that cave after 3 days. Just like we have Christmas plays where, you know, we picture Joseph and Mary riding on a donkey. There's no mention of a donkey. They go to an inn. It wasn't an inn. It was a cave where shepherds kept the Levitical sheep, the sheep for the sacrifices for the Bethlehem temple. Okay, so, you know, it was a place called Migdal Eder. It was a messianic prophecy that he would be born there, because those lambs were so precious. If they were born during cold weather or early spring or wet time, they would wrap them in swaddling clothes and lay them next to the ewes, let them nurse. So they found Jesus wrapped in swaddling clothes, laying in a rock manger, which a manger is not two crosses of wood. It was a rock that was hewn out that they poured rain or water in there. So they found him laying on a rock ledge inside a cave. And where did they lay him when he died? On a rock ledge inside a cave. See, everything, God, as it was, so it will be. You know, as it was at the beginning, so it will be again. God, animals, perfect creation, people. How does Revelation end? God, animals, perfect creation, people. And then I will wipe every tear away from your eye, and the old former things shall be done away with and never thought of again. You know, there's things that we see in Christian plays, we just accept, and it's fine, and it's not a matter of salvation or not. But if you want confidence in your Bible, if when someone comes against you, if at some point you have to say, I have to lay down my life for this thing, then you want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this word is real, and not just because a preacher said something. right? Anybody in here ever went to a preacher and asked, am I saved? Yeah. A lot of people have asked, posed that question to me. Like, you know, this is what the Bible says. You work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You don't, because a lot of people like, they'll pray a prayer, and some preachers will say, okay, you're good. You prayed a prayer, and now you're good. Never have to do anything else. And that's a very dangerous thing, in my opinion, to do to anybody. Because, you know, it is all, if ever leadership in this church, and God forbid, ever fail, you have no excuse not to serve God. If your best friend who you thought was a saint turns out to be the biggest lying hypocrite, you have no excuse not to serve God. You know how many people, I remember when Swaggart fell, and you know how many people said, well, if Swaggart can't live it, I can't live it. It's like, he's just a human being. You know, I mean, it was no secret to anybody that knew me or knew anything about me that after we lost Lisa, me and her mom got crossroads. And I tell you what, and don't ever say anything bad about my mother-in-law, because I'll come at you. Okay? But she got crossways, and me and her got crossways. And I tell you what, death messes people up for a while. And you can brag about how well you'd handle it if you want, but when it comes time, you'll be slobbering on the ground like everybody else and trying to figure out why God let this happen to you. Okay? But I was talking to somebody about how they were talking about somebody that had hurt them, and I said, well, you know, there was times that my kids would come back and they'd say something that they had heard somebody say about me. And you know, and that would spark me to say something bad. And, you know, and I said, you know what? And there's been twice that I've called and said, you know what? Anything I've said, forgive me. I'm sorry. That's why nowadays I just prefer to keep my mouth shut, because those are bitter conversations to have. I'm sorry. They're very humbling. Okay. And this person was like, I just can't believe it. Preacher's wife would do that. I was like, listen, you got a kid, don't you? Yeah. You ever badmouth your son-in-law? You know, I told Sister Neil and Brother Neil, I said after Mackenzie got married, I said, I understand now why sometimes Brother Neil hugged me and sometimes he just looked at me. Nobody's good enough for your kid. I'm sorry. Nobody's ever going to be good enough for your kid. So, and nobody's not badmouth somebody. So don't put preachers and teachers and all this stuff on some kind of a high pedestal. We're supposed to live above reproach, but we're just people. We're just people. So don't think that you've got a way out of not serving God because somebody above you has done something wrong, because that's not true. Not in the least is that true. All right. Is God okay with killing animals?
I would say yes.
Sure.
I mean, up until the flood, He gave us every green thing to eat. But, you know, I don't think we appreciate what Noah saw when he got off that boat, because there was probably blue skies that never existed. There was probably a totally different, if there was a water vapor there was probably a totally different atmosphere up there. I'd grow some grapes and probably get drunk too. I mean, if you come out one day and for the rest of your life, the sky's red and all you've ever known is a beautiful blue sky, it would be a tough change. The whole world has changed. His whole world has changed.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a shock. And everybody you know is dead. And of course, now you're on a mountain, but they're pretty close to the plains of Shinar where all the bodies together. So, you know, there's a big stink.
I figured they're washed away somewhere.
All of the, well, in Jewish tradition, where they built the Tower of Babel, where Nimrod, who was possibly a Nephilim, certainly not a servant of God, he wanted to build a tower there because that was where as far as vengeance goes, because that was where most of the bodies had settled in the plains of Shinar, which is Iraq, you know. And so
They said the water was, even though it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, the water was on the ground. for
Well,
150 days.
it burst up from the ground. I mean,
Yeah, but it stayed, they floated around for 150
Yeah.
days, so.
so that water vapor fell, the water burst up from the ground, probably up into the atmosphere. What are asteroids? They're just mostly ice, are they not? Okay, now one's coming home in a few years. You know,
Well,
and
there was fish and things in the water already, I assume they ate the bodies. Not to be morbid or anything, but
well, I mean, but when the water
they
was
ate something.
when the water receded, it did say that the bodies, a lot of the bodies went into the flames of Shinar, because that's where Nimrod built the Tower of Babel, which is Iraq. Which, Babylon was something that Saddam Hussein was always trying to accomplish. Babylon, and Babylon will certain. That's, in my opinion, the deadly head on the Antichrist that was wounded and then came back to life. How many heads you got? You only got one. But it said one of its heads, which Babylon was the big. Israel came back as a nation out of nowhere. Babylon's probably going to come back as a nation nowhere, and then there will also be a mystery Babylon, which either would probably be Rome or when they've taken over Jerusalem. But yeah, it's when you listen. I mean, the Book of Jasher is not considered biblical text, but it is Jewish history. And when you get in there, you can fill in a lot of the blanks. Is like, that's why that is. Chuck Missler, one of the best Bible scholars I've ever listened to, short of, other than Perry Stone. And I think Perry Stone probably got a lot of stuff from him. And first thing he says, if you just take everything I say at face value because I say it, you failed the test already. Be like the Bereans. Go out and look. Don't just take because a preacher can get it wrong. Even a Sunday school teacher can get it wrong. Your friends, your mom and dad can get it wrong. How many people have preached something and preached it with the best, fullest intent of their heart and found out later, we know that scripture now meant something totally different. But yet they preached it with the full intent of something good, which, was good. But that particular verse in Hebrew means something totally different from what they were doing. But they did it out of the best of their heart. They didn't do it with the intent to twist the word of God or to lie or anything like that. So there's a reason God gave us really good, smart people. And if you got ears, then listen to them. If you don't care, go fishing. But stay away from the whales. They'll swallow you. All right. Questions, comments? No. Oh, wow. Did I puke out way too much deep stuff today or what? Or are you just concerned the fact that we got a steeple on our church? I hated to take that innocence away from you, but they really, I've had them tell me face to face, it's like, listen, you're doing bad. Get that thing off there. Y'all doing bad. That's an obelisk. That's a male phallic symbol. That's Baal. You're serving Egyptian gods. It's like, I always just looked at it like that's just pointing the way to heaven. Like I said, if somebody out there can come up with a tradition behind it, I'd be curious to know. We know that the enemy has infiltrated the church. We do things that are strictly traditions. I'll always look to Halloween as just a time to get candy, but they combine that with the church. I always look to Christmas, which is not Christ's birthday, but it is the Feast of Lights, Hanukkah. But in pagan, they would burn a Yule log as the sign of some god dying, and they would bring a green branch or green tree into their house the next day and decorate it as a sign that God was reborn. I'm sorry, I'm stepping all over somebody's Christmas tree, and it don't matter. You're not worshiping some false deity by doing all that stuff, or by hiding an Easter egg. But if we become aware of these things, then maybe we don't want to participate quite so hard, because with us it's all American tradition anyway. I look at it as completely, strictly American tradition, not even trying to do some. But you get some people, I know people that are, Torah believers, that they kept hammering me and they said, you're going to have to block us because we cannot not hammer you on this stuff. I was like, okay, block. Because they get very upset about some of this stuff. It's like, I hid eggs for my kids. It was just a fun rabbit American tradition. Took them out getting candy, made them dress like either a piece of pizza or something. Nothing demonic, nothing dead, no glorification of satanic things. And we just got some candy. You know, I always just grew up, of course, I didn't grow up in church, but I just grew up as an American tradition. And there's a lot of things that have been folded into the church because this is what they were, and they got saved, and then it's like, well, we had fun doing this, so we're going to find a way to still incorporate this and make it spiritual. So, anyway, Nick, bless the people.
I'm gonna say something. I'll tell you
No,
one thing.
don't say that.
I would say this, one thing, though, when you talk about Christmas and all the other stuff, the reason behind a lot of that stuff was to combat the pagan holidays. that were there.
Yeah.
You know, but in their heart it was good, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not a heaven or hell situation.
Absolutely.
So.
Thanks. Extend your hand and receive the blessing of the Lord as you go to service. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you. Grant you his shalom. Amen. You know, that's just what the enemy does now. He gives you the rainbow.
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
yeah. Hijack something.
What do you think about Ron DeSantis sending all those refugees to,
I